Welcome to another episode of the DTF Podcast with Doster, T.O. and Podcast. It is Monday morning, January 17th. My name is Rob Doster. I am joined by my lovely co-host, Clemson sharpshooter, and now Raycom color commentator, Terrence Oglesby, as well as the Big East Digital Networks and Fox Sports, John Fanta. Gentlemen, how are we doing today? Everyone good? Everyone have a good weekend?
Doing great, man. As long as I can figure out my coffee situation. Great weekend. We actually got about 3 inches of snow. So the world closed down in South Carolina because we don't know how to deal with these type of situations. So grocery stores are closed. There's a couple gas stations open. I can't get to Chick-fil-A. Huge travesty. Other than that, we're functioning. Kids went sledding. They're happy. Introduced my son to the Sandlot last night. He was amazed at how well Benny the Jet Rodriguez was able to pickle the beast. So
that is
I felt like I did good parenting. Good parenting.
That is an all-time classic movie. Good job. Good work. Fanta, how was your weekend, man?
Well, it snowed in New Jersey. Kind of took a load off, was watching games and monitoring things, but spent some time with the lady and kind of observed the sport from afar nationally, just to take a look at some teams that I haven't seen as closely because I've been on a Saturday game or had a game on the weekend that obviously, as you know, T.O. could take up some time for your prep work. So sometimes you might miss a team. But I was inside Buffalo Wild Wings on Saturday, gentlemen. I love to get those potato wedges with shredded cheese and some bacon. So I'm sitting here in Buffalo Wild Wings, and the whole restaurant is watching the Bengals-Raiders game. And my eyes are staring at Baylor and Oklahoma State, and also on the other TV, TCU in Oklahoma, which somehow went to overtime. But Baylor losing to Oklahoma State, which means on this Monday, January 17th, we will have a new number one, and I believe that should be Bruce Pearl and the Auburn Tigers.
So let's get into that. Why? Why Bruce Pearl? Why Auburn?
Well, I think that they're the most complete team in the country. And I think that they're a team that has proven in these recent weeks with their play, with their wins. The win in Tuscaloosa, for me, next level stuff. Because of the fact, Rob, that I think that there's a fair argument to say that they possess the most versatile 4-5 duo in America. Between the great play of Jabari Smith, his length, his skill set, he could very well hear his name called number one in the draft next June. But it goes beyond him. I look at Walker Kessler and what he does from a rim protection standpoint. If you don't have them, you've got Dylan Cardwell, who won them the game at Alabama with the game-securing block. You have a backcourt, guys, that has several candidates that could go for that 20-point performance on any given night. We saw it last week with what Wendell Green put up for the Tigers, but there's J.D. Davison. There are other names as well in that backcourt. And you have one of the best coaches in America. That straight up, Bruce Pearl has done a terrific job at molding this team. Just one loss on the season on a neutral floor to the Connecticut Huskies. The Auburn Tigers belong at the number one spot. They're playing the best basketball right now. They have a completeness to them. And I love this team and do believe that at the moment, they are the best team in the country for what they've done in recent weeks and for the fact that they possess a superstar who's not a guard. And they got really good guards already. And I love that about the Tigers' makeup.
I think it comes down to who you're going to rank number one on how you value metrics versus resume, if that makes sense. Gonzaga is number one in the net. Gonzaga is number one in KenPom. They are number one in most of the places that are going to give you some of these advanced numbers. A very large reason for that is that they keep putting up 115 points on teams that they play. They completely ran BYU and Santa Clara and Pepperdine out of the gym. They are the most ruthless offense in college basketball right now. I don't really think that that's debatable. But their resume does not stack up anywhere near to what Auburn's does right now either. Here are Gonzaga's best wins this season. They beat Texas at home, which doesn't look as good as it did at the time. They beat Texas Tech on a neutral, which is pretty good, but Texas Tech also just lost to Kansas State. They beat UCLA on I guess that was at Pauley Pavilion, right? So that was looked a lot better. Was that no? That was in neutral. That was in Vegas.
That was in Las Vegas.
Yeah, that was in Vegas. So they beat they beat UCLA, which I mean probably is a really good win, but like UCLA has not been all that great this season. And they blew out BYU at home, who we thought was going to be awesome when they beat the hell out of Oregon, but really hasn't been all that impressive. Whereas Auburn's resume, they beat LSU by 15 at home. They got Loyola Chicago on a neutral. They won at Alabama. They won at St. Louis. To put it in perspective, to kind of tie a bow on it, right now, Auburn is 4-1 against quad 1 opponents and 4-0 against quad 2 opponents, where Gonzaga is 4-2 against quad 1 with just one quad 2 win. So I think the argument is that if you're basing this on a resume, Auburn is number 1, which means, Theo, we get to the tiebreaker. Put them on a neutral court, right? They're facing off. Vegas,
a lot of metrics.
Wherever you want, Houston, wherever you want to play this game. Who wins? Auburn against Gonzaga right now.
Well, for the sake of argument, we can play in New Orleans.
Play
That's
New
what
Orleans.
it's going to be. Let's say this. I think Auburn would win the game right now. So to me, that's where it comes down to. Wherever you say Gonzaga is the number 1 offense in the country, they are, according to Ken Palm, in a lot of these places. But what do? They attack the rim, shooting over 60% from 2. What does Auburn do better than anybody in the country right now?
Oh, protect it.
Protect it. Not only that, you got Jabari Smith back there, fine shot blocker. Key to that team so far has been Walker Kessler, because those guards aren't allowed to get up there and pressure as much if Walker Kessler's not back there behind them. They protect the rim at such a high rate. There's not a team in the country that plays harder with more consistency than the Auburn Tigers. And a lot of that has to do with their coach. Those guys get after it defensively, and they have some junkyard dogs, and there's not just 1 or 2 of them. It's a team full of them. And whenever you have the best player on the court on any given night that you step out to play someone, you're going to give yourself a chance to win. And your best offensive player is not your best defensive player. And I think the transfer of Walker Kessler has made all the difference for Auburn, because it feeds right into Bruce Pearl's wheelhouse of being able to pressure opposing teams' guards, get them to make quick decisions, and you have this 7'1" guy that just blocks anything and everything around the rim. I think if the two played, I'm going to go with Auburn.
Yeah,
Gonzaga.
Go ahead, Tio.
No, Gonzaga, I mean, they've struggled with the athletic bigs. Auburn has that.
Mm-hmm.
Gonzaga, like, they can throw waves of rugged guards at you to guard Nembhard. Auburn has that. Like, if those two played right now, say for the sake of argument in New Orleans, I think Auburn wins. And I love the way Bruce Pearl goes about his business. It's all energy all the time, all gas, no breaks from start to finish. Like the energy around that program, the energy of which they play. Nobody plays harder. And Jabari Smith's a big reason on offense, and Walker Kessler's a big reason on defense.
Yeah, the one thing I would say is this, to kind of play a little bit of devil's advocate here. The way that the pressing defenses work is that they rely on guards that don't make good decisions, right? They rely on you making mistakes, right? That's kind of like the core tenet of a pressing defense, right? It's like they want to make your guards make mistakes. And I think that Gonzaga has enough good guards that I don't necessarily see that rattling them, right? Like, I just think Andrew Nembhard, you're not going to get him out of what he kind of wants to do, right? Like, he's a 4th-year McDonald's All-American that has played in a national title game. Like, that dude's going to do kind of what he wants. I think that we still have a ceiling there, because I can't imagine that Nolan Hickman is not going to continue to improve now that he's going to get like 20 minutes a game and all of these blowouts that they play.
Blowouts. That's another reason their metrics are fantastic, because I know we were on the show the other day with Prom, and Probe's like, hey, man, there's some good teams. Prom's a former coach, like a former head coach. If guys run good stuff, those teams are good teams. It doesn't necessarily, those two don't necessarily correlate.
I get it.
Guy is a really good coach.
Trust me, I get it.
So
all I'm saying is that when I don't think that you can get Gonzaga out of what they want to do. Now, my biggest concern is that teams that have proven the willingness to get out and run with Gonzaga have been able to beat them so far this year. That's Duke and that's Alabama. If you want to run with them, I think that you can probably you can handle that a little bit. And yes, the athletic bigs thing is a big problem, because you can put Jabari Smith on Chet Holmgren, who's out away from the basket, and you can put Walker Kessler on Drew Timme, and I think that you probably can have a pretty good chance of slowing them down there. So I'll put it like this. I don't think that there's necessarily a wrong choice for number one. I would probably go with Auburn as a slight favorite over Gonzaga at this point. I would not quibble with anyone that went with Gonzaga over Auburn. I just want this game to happen. We got to find a way to make this game happen. Like I'll call up Bruce Pearl, I'll call up Mark Few. I told Goodman to do this on After Dark on Saturday. Put him on a text thread. Tell him if you guys have any kind of cancellations coming up and you have a free weekend, just go play it somewhere, right? You could broadcast it on the field of 68.
It's hard right now, though.
We'll put Fence on the call.
Yeah, but well,
I don't want to hear your excuses, T.O. Come on, I need this energy, baby. Let's go. It's Monday morning. We want Gonzaga, Alabama, or we want Gonzaga, Auburn, right here on the Field of 68 Network. Imagine,
that'd be good.
Picture this, T.O. Picture this. We have Gonzaga playing Auburn on the Field of 68. John Fanta on the call. Current Raycom Sports color commentator Terrence Oglesby breaking it down. How many, if that happened, Fanta, how many times would T.O.'s call Katie Johnson nightmare fuel?
17.
Over under on 2.5, at least per half.
But here's the thing. It would be fun. And I want that game to happen. And I hope it happens in New Orleans. I hope, here's the beauty of this sport this year. I hope about 12 games happen in New Orleans. And guess what? There's only going to be 3. There's only 3 games that happen at the Superdome. And they're going to be fantastic because that's how good the sport is this year. But the fact is, you asked the question, who's number one right now? And this goes back to what we've talked about from the very start of this podcast when I kind of went off on the AP poll. Not kind of, I did. This is a snapshot. The AP top 25 poll is a snapshot. There have been ranked teams today that don't make the NCAA tournament. That has happened. That has happened. You could be ranked 23rd today. Guess what? If you lose 7 of your next 8 games, it don't matter. It don't matter. If you don't have a good enough resume, you're gone. Goodbye. The point is, right now, on this Monday, it's not about who would win between the two. It's who has the better body of work.
Yep.
Auburn has the better body of work when compared to Gonzaga, in my humble opinion. A head-to-head opponent, that being Alabama, went out to the West Coast to Seattle and beat Gonzaga and beat them fair and square. Like, had that game won with 2 minutes on the clock. Auburn goes to Tuscaloosa, plays the same type of game in terms of pace and tempo and all those variables, and Auburn beats Alabama and had them beat for a while before Alabama made a late surge because they're on their home court. Auburn is deserving of number one. Could Gonzaga be the number one team when it's all said and done and win the national championship? Abso-freaking-lutely. But on this Monday, the Tigers are deserving.
Yep, I agree. All right, so we're going to get into all that because one of the topics that I wanted to discuss on this show today was our tier of title teams, our tier of title contenders. How many teams you think fit into that number? How many teams do you think actually have a real chance of winning a title this season? I think it's a lot more than people realize. But before we do that, it was an absurd weekend in college basketball. So I want to get your guys, like, just your biggest storyline from the weekend before we get into kind of the title tier stuff. We had Oklahoma State beating Baylor, and Baylor losing 2 straight home games for the first time ever as the AP number one team. We have Gonzaga continuing to roll. Obviously, Auburn is still beating everybody. We had Oregon going into UCLA and into USC and knocking off 2 top 10 teams on the road this week. We had Duke looking awesome against NC State. We had Kansas and David McCormick kind of finding another gear. Michigan State lost at home. LSU lost at home. Texas lost again. We had Villanova put up crazy numbers that against Butler that almost matched the crazy numbers that Kentucky put up against Tennessee, the number 2 team in Ken Palm's defensive efficiency metric. Texas Tech lost. It was just Alabama lost. Seton Hall. It was an unbelievable weekend in college basketball. So, T.O., I'm going to you first on this one. What was your single biggest storyline from the weekend?
I think the answer is Oregon. You go down, Coach Altman has struggled to get those guys to play together early in the season. He goes down and collects 2 wins in Los Angeles against 2 very good teams. And guys, we've kind of been waiting to see what's going to happen because it was kind of a weird mixture of guys. Like Jacob Young's kind of a wildcat. Davion Harmon, he is what he is. But Will Richardson's finally come alive. And this Oregon team, they have a lot of talent. And sometimes it takes some time to get used to your new players. And whenever you're transfer heavy like Oregon is, sometimes, especially really successful transfers that were either the first or second option on their team, You got to find ways for the guys to fit together. Got to find ways the guys to fit together. He's starting to do that. And for them to get those 2 big wins, Will Richardson has been good at the beginning. So far this year, he's been their leading scorer. He's been really good. Had 28 against Southern Cal.
He was unbelievable this weekend. I'm gonna throw a stat at you, T.O. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Actually, I think you know the stat already, and you can hear my daughter melting down in the background. It's a holiday here. We have kids at home these days, and I guess mine are just not as well behaved as T.O.'s at this point. But Will Richardson,
mine are barricaded. Hold on. Mine are barricaded. I have 2 doors to get to my office. So you have one door out here, and it's a soundproof door. And then I have I don't know why I was there. It was there when we bought the house. And then I have another door to my office. It's also closed. So
I don't want to know what was going on in that office before you got there. If it's a soundproof barricaded door.
Me neither. But here I
am. Here's the stat. So Will Richardson has scored in single digits in 5 games this season. Oregon is 1-4 in those games. The one game that they won was against Chaminade in the Las Vegas, whatever the Maui Invitational that was held in Las Vegas. When he scores in double figures, they've only lost twice this season. I think it's it's 10-2 on the year. One of those losses was to Baylor at home when they actually played pretty well, and the other one came at Stanford by 3 points. So
but that was your super stat the other night, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It's the 3rd time that I've rattled off this stat. It's a great stat.
It's a fantastic one. Take that one until use that one as long as
I'm going to keep using it. You know, it. But to your point, and Fans, I'm curious your take on this. It's just when Oregon gets that backcourt going, it changes everything for them. At this point, John, where do you see Oregon kind of stand in the pantheon of Pac-12 teams? We know Arizona is really, really good. USC looks like they might be just a little bit. They've lost back-to-back games now. They lost to Stanford. They lost to Oregon.
UCLA is overvalued.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
USC and UCLA. You think they're both overvalued? Fenton?
I think both are overvalued right now.
I think when it's said and done, the Oregon Ducks are going to finish number 3 in the Pac-12. I still think UCLA will be number 2. It would not surprise me at all if Oregon hopped them, but it just took some time for Dana Altman to get this particular group going. Now, look, I don't see anybody really challenging Arizona. And I know you might say, well, look, the rankings would reflect differently. Arizona is the best team in the Pac-12. Yep. They are the best team in the Pac-12. If Kirk Kreese is playing under control, and that's a big if, but if that's happening, then this is a team that
don't hate on my guy Kirk Kreese. Come on.
No. Go ahead, Fanta. Do you don't let Dalton dissuade you from what you're saying. Make your point, sir.
Their overall length is fantastic, but here's the thing with Oregon: they are so hard to play against, and in your Richardson stat, it really does reflect it. That I thought that this last year was so exemplified with a different team when Iowa played Oregon and got absolutely run off the floor. Dana Altman is one of the best chess players in college basketball. He is great at taking your weakness and making it his strength. That's what he does for a living. And he does such a good job of just identifying that and exposing. And I thought that Oregon did a terrific job of that this weekend. They made both their opponents extremely uncomfortable. They made UCLA's defense uncomfortable. And Mick Cronin had to be having trouble sleeping this weekend because Mick Cronin's defenses never look uncomfortable. They've got great guard play, and it is a guards game, and it's coming around. Oregon may very well be a misseeded team on Selection Sunday.
Hold on. They're not.
They'll make the tournament.
They're definitely going to make the tournament. I don't have any doubt about that. They're not going to be misseeded. They're going to be better than what their seed is, but they got a quad 4 loss to Arizona State. They were beat.
No, Rob.
They were beat like Houston owed them money. They lost by 32 points to BYU. Gonzaga put up 180,000 points on BYU on Thursday. Okay. I watched that game. It was 180,000. Oregon scored 49. Look, they're better. They're hitting their stride, but they're not going to be underseeded. They're going to be properly seeded for a team that played like ass for the first 2 months of the season.
Okay, we disagree. So we disagree on this. When I say underseeded, I'm saying they're better than that seed.
Yeah, they will be. But
so seeded correctly by the committee,
Gotcha.
is not what a coach is looking at.
No, eye test, big eye test.
No, so I'm with you. The committee's going to seat them where they seat them. But guess what? Somebody's stuck in a 7-10 game is going to be really pissed off.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to lose.
Imagine being the 2 seed that has to draw Oregon when they're hitting their stride as a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament. It's going to
Bingo.
suck.
That's what I'm saying. Once upon a time in 2016, Gonzaga was an 11 seed. And I'm sitting there, I'm covering Seton Hall very closely. I'm a student. It's Selection Sunday. Seton Hall's in their first NCAA tournament in years. They're the 6th seed in Utah, playing at 10 o'clock at night against 11-seeded Gonzaga. The game was over before it started, and you got the 6. It's the worst 6th seed I've ever seen in my life. So somebody's going to get a good seed or maybe a better seed than Oregon, and it ain't going to matter. Or this Oregon team could be the one that crashes the party and makes the Sweet 16 when we really like a 2 seed. We're going to be sitting there saying that is one scary matchup. So that's what I mean when I say seeded properly by committee. But in the eyes of us, coaches and players, we're going to say, damn, that number next to them, it does not reflect who they actually are.
You know, another one who was tragically, when I was playing my freshman year in college, we were a 5 seed. You know who we drew in the first round? Freaking Villanova.
Oh God!
And it was what was it? Corey Stokes. They had Scott Reynolds, Antonio Payne. Like, it was such a good team.
That was the one year when everybody in your building, because that was in Tampa, right? Every underseeded team, every like 12 or 13 seed won. I think Western Kentucky hit that game-winning 3 in overtime.
Siena beat Vandy.
Siena upset somebody in overtime, and then I think it was Vanderbilt lost to
Siena
State.
No, Vanderbilt lost to Siena because we were going to have that game,
and then Murray State beat someone too. I remember that.
Yeah, like that. There you go. Like, I was just looking at that Gonzaga example from 2016. Gonzaga gets an 11. The 6 is Seton Hall, who won the Big East Championship with Isaiah Whitehead. The 3 was Utah. Okay, really good Utah team in 2016. They had a pro, but I digress. Gonzaga wins the opening round game as an 11, 68-52. In the round of 32, they face Utah, who was one of the best teams in the country, ranked top 15 all year. They beat Utah 82-59. They go to the Sweet 16. The only reason why they lost was that was the year that Jim Boeheim, one of those years where he just couldn't lose. They lost by 3 to Syracuse, who ended up making the Final Four in 2016 and playing North Carolina.
Fanta, so give me your biggest.
Kyle Kuzma was the pro, wasn't he? Was it Kyle Kuzma was the pro?
Yep, they beat Kyle Kuzma led Utah by 23. Like, this happens in the tournament. That's why it's a crapshoot.
Yeah, that's what makes it the best postseason ever, and also the worst way to determine the best team with a postseason. And I love it. I'd have it no other way. Fanta, give me your biggest storyline from college basketball this weekend.
They combined for 49 points and 13 assists. Ladies and gentlemen, Ty Washington, accompanied by Severe Wheeler. We just talked last week, and I was told on this show that Severe Wheeler would not be part of Kentucky's best 5. And Severe Wheeler made a resounding statement on Saturday, and so did the Kentucky Wildcats in a 107-79 win over Tennessee. Ty Washington is playing like the guy we all thought he could be, and Kentucky is a team that you can believe in this big dance. I am buying the Wildcats. I think Ty is the perfect player for John Calipari's system. Kellen Grady keeps coming along. We love that transfer out when it happened, and they have one of the best bigs, if not the best big in America this season, in Oscar Tshiebwe, who only had 9 points in this win. He didn't need to have any more than that. The fact of the matter is this, gentlemen. If Kentucky gets a Severe Wheeler they had on Saturday, the Kentucky Wildcats could be in New Orleans. They could be in New Orleans if Wheeler is playing like that, because guess what? Ty ain't slowing down. Ty Washington is picking up steam right now, and I'm liking what I'm seeing.
I'm going to tell you why that's the big deal. Because Kentucky on Saturday played a game that was 73 possessions. They've been playing right around that, like the low 70s mark since the Notre Dame game against.
Right. Can I interrupt you? You are like this podcast version of Rain Man. Just as soon as something happens, stats.
No, I got it. I'll tell you why.
I love this so much. I'm taking you to play blackjack.
Yeah, I'm putting it into context for you. Okay, so they've been kind of in that like low 70s mark for possessions. Low 70s would have them as like a top 20 team in terms of pace in college basketball. 62 possessions is the number of possessions per game that Villanova averages. Do you know where Villanova ranks in terms of pace in college basketball, in terms of tempo? 355th. The reason why Kentucky has hit a new gear with Severe Wheeler in that lineup, and they're playing well with those two together, is that they're playing like this. They're getting up and down the floor. And where Severe Wheeler is going to thrive is when you get him in open court settings. The problem with having Severe Wheeler and Ty Washington on the floor together is if you want to play possession by possession, slow it down, grind it out game, because you do not have to guard him on the perimeter. And if you do not have to guard him and you don't have to worry about guarding whoever is at the four, all of a sudden that floor just kind of goes like this and gets condensed. And when you have a big guy like Oscar Tshiebwe in the middle, you need to have a way to create space for him. So the fact that John Calipari is now playing like this, that right there is a total game changer for Kentucky. I'm with you. Kentucky's awesome. They're fourth right now in KenPom, TO. They're awesome.
I thought Tennessee was so overwhelmed by Rupp Arena that they couldn't function. Like I was sat there and I watched that game, and I'm sitting here watching those guards. I'm like, Severe Wheeler was getting downhill so fast against a Tennessee team, even after makes, that just wasn't all the way focused. I'm sorry to rain on your guys' parade, but Kentucky, they relied on a lot of off the dribble, mid-range jump shots. They made a lot of those. Not sustainable.
But that's Ty's game. That's the thing.
Yeah, but not sustainable. Well, that's why that's Ty Washington. That's fine. It's not sustainable against really, really good teams. And Tennessee didn't play like a really good team.
Yeah, it might not be, but like at the same time, that's also what Jordan, like that's Jordan Davis's game too. You know, like that. There's a lot of guys that kind of make that work at this level. And I hear what you're saying, but the other part is, T.O., this was the first time that we saw Ty and Severe play like that. The reason why Kentucky is great this year is Oscar Tshiebwe. Like, he is the guy that they build around. So on the night when he gets taken away, the guards step up and make a play. Like, that's why I'm so bullish. They can beat you multiple ways. They can play up and down like this. They can get the ball to Big Sheev in the middle. Their guards are making like it just they're trending in this direction. Now, do you want to shoot all those pull-up jumpers off the dribble in the mid-range? Probably not. But you know what? Kellen Grady's still shooting better. How about this? What do you think he's shooting from three this season, Kellen Grady?
Probably 50%, if not better.
48 for 104. That's good, T.O.
That is good.
You want some more numbers? That is 46.2% from three. It's not bad.
That's good. That's good. What do you do? What do you do if you're an opposing team and you're playing against Kentucky? What would you do?
I would try to slow the game down.
Yeah.
I would not send people to the offensive glass. And when Severe Wheeler would have the ball, I would play off. I would do exactly what Notre Dame did. Try to make it like a 60 to 63 possession game. Play off of Severe Wheeler, send help to Big Sheep, and dare that dude to shoot. Dare that dude to beat me from outside the paint.
Deny the advance pass.
Yes.
Because that's where they were really good. Like, they were getting that ball. Severe was getting it on the wing, and he hit Kellen Grady up. They'd be able to find something quick. And then what happened is Tennessee started retreating back so fast that they weren't matching up. Like, Tennessee played like shit.
Yeah, they did.
Bad as they've played. And like, completely rattled, no help side. Even in half court situations, like, their rotations were trash.
Yeah.
They were trash. And that's not the Tennessee team we've seen play. Like this, they walked into Rupp Arena, got completely overwhelmed by the size and the crowd, and I guess too much ice cream. I don't know what it was, but it was pitiful. Like, tennis, like I'm all with Kentucky being good. I'm all with them being good. I'm not sure they're Final Four good like a lot of people. I think somebody will pick them off because a lot of their points were kind of crap points. Bad switches.
We've been saying that, right?
Just throwing it over. Yeah, but it was just bad. Like Tennessee was really poor defensively.
Yeah,
and
they were shocked. But everything about Kentucky this year, like we've been saying, they're matchup dependent, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly. Which makes me work.
This did not look like a favorable matchup on paper, and it ended up being one that kind of worked out well for them. Which is why I'm like, okay, maybe we need to pay a little bit more attention to this group. Now we're going to find out like real soon. On Saturday, they play at Auburn. So we're going to know. We're going to find out really soon.
They're going to lose that game.
Yeah, we're going to find out really soon. They also get your boys Texas A&M on
They'll
Wednesday.
slow it down.
Yeah, they'll slow it down. Like, we're gonna find out just how real they are. But I thought
Tennessee was piss poor. Like I hate it because I'm from East Tennessee, boys, and I got a lot of family that only wear that color of orange.
You're from Tennessee?
Yep.
Wow.
And only wear that color of orange.
Is that why you went to Clemson so that your family could still wear orange?
Yeah. Just
orange is not a flattering color on a lot of people, Tio. Orange is not a flattering color.
Yeah. Well, it looks good on me,
especially from those folks up in upstate New York. They should not be wearing orange.
That's a wrong
folks
shade.
In Cleveland, though. Folks in Cleveland, baby.
That's it. Dog pound. But anyway, no, I thought Tennessee was as bad a game as they've played. And to be honest with you guys, I thought Kennedy Chandler was a little too cool for school. Like, I didn't think he played all that hard. I thought they were poor. It wasn't, you didn't see Kentucky. You saw the best version of Kentucky. You saw the absolute worst version in Tennessee, which is what I took away from that game more than anything.
Yep. All right. So my biggest storyline from the weekend was the second time this week that the number one team in the country lost. I have a take on this. Well, first and foremost, before we get into the Baylor side, I just want to shout out Mike Boynton. Shout out to Oklahoma State. Like, people that listen to this pod know how we feel, specifically how I feel about the way that NCAA ruling came down. It's awful. It's bullshit. And I think that they got railroaded. I don't think that it's right. So to see that team and that staff and that program and those kids be able to have a moment like going on the road and beating the reigning national champions who were number one in the country in their own building, kind of kicking their ass a little bit too, is something that I'm happy. Like, it makes me, I like that. Good for them. But for me, we've made this point before, and I think it was I can't remember where I said it, but I think it was on the show. I said my biggest concern with Baylor is their small guards. And I think what we saw this week was two teams that play a whole bunch of dudes that are like 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", athletic, switch everything, length, athleticism. I think we saw some of the limitations at having a guy like a James Akinjo who's 6'1", and Adam Flagler who's 6'2", and LJ Cryer who's 6'1". Having those guys be your initiators can be a little bit problematic when they got to beat dudes like Adonis Arms or Bryce Thompson or some of those long athletic guys that Oklahoma State and Texas Tech had. I think, to me, that was my biggest takeaway, is like, okay, this is how Baylor can be gotten when you have length and athleticism on the perimeter that can kind of, you switch everything. You don't let them run their offense, and you make sure that their guards can't create at the point of attack. And all of a sudden Baylor kind of gets a little bit, you can limit them in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. And they didn't force any turnovers either, which is something that Baylor has thrived on all year. Their turnover percentage against both those teams, less than 20%. Mm-hmm. Undefeated in the rest of the games. They have to be able to create a turnover and get out and run, because that allows some of that flow of movement to begin. They weren't able to do that against either Texas Tech or Oklahoma State. And also, both teams really athletic. Both teams can really guard the basketball. Kind of going along with what you said, Doster. And the 2-point percentage, those two games were bad too. So, threes go in and out. You have to be good around the rim. That's really important. And I just interesting to see. This isn't a damning thing by any stretch of the imagination in my eyes, though.
Well, John, does it change the way that I just called you? I think that was the first time I've called you John and not Fanta since I've actually known you. But so Fanta, does it change the way that you view Baylor this season? Because I think we were kind of getting to a point where it was like, yeah, Baylor is like the clear-cut, unquestioned, no doubt about it, number one team in the country.
Well, it does change that way because I don't think it's nearly as clear-cut, and I do think that they have some things to figure out on the offensive end of the floor. One of the things that we talked about last week was, at some point when you get to the NCAA tournament, you have to be able to score the ball in different ways to win. When you're playing your second game in 3 days, or your fourth game in a span of 10 days, you got to be able to find other ways to score. And I thought that was a strength of Baylor. And I still do. I think they had a clunker of a week, particularly on the offensive end. I also think it speaks to the amount that they poured into the last 10 minutes of the Texas Tech game. They were trying on a not good day for them offensively to win that game.
Mm-hmm.
And you turn the page, and Mike Boynton had to tell his Oklahoma State team, guys, this is your national championship game here in Waco. It's our chance here this year. It's very unfortunate what has occurred with the Cowboys, but the fact is that's what has occurred with them, that they won't be appearing on the big dance floor. For me, though, where I get concerned about Baylor is that Matthew Meyer's been inconsistent, and that on the interior, they do not have a consistent way that they're scoring the basketball.
Yep.
They have a lot of size and quality in it. But at some point, you got to be able to put the ball through the hoop. I know it's you're not going to get that analysis anywhere else. But Baylor's inefficient offensively on the interior. They need their guards to deliver, and they need James Akinjo to be the head of the snake. And I think what we learned this past week is that when Akinjo's trying to find out about that perimeter shot throughout the course of the game, he's the most important piece of this Baylor team. That's why you have All-American type of praise for him. If he's a little bit off kilter, or if a defense makes him uncomfortable, what does Baylor do in response? They have Flagler, they have Cryer. To me, though, guys, I get concerned because I don't know what I'm getting game to game from the 4 and 5 positions. And at a certain point, if I'm a defense, I say, get the ball in the hands of these players because we'll live with them. Mm-hmm. We want to take it out of James Akinjo's hands.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's a good point. Not having that pressure release where you could throw the ball to a guy in a post and just let people run off of them, know that you're going to get a bucket, get a foul, changes the way that teams can defend you. You can't quite climb all over everybody knowing that you got a guy down there that can kind of be the pivot of an offense. All right, let's end this thing. Let's talk about our title tier of teams. I don't know how many you guys have. I wrote 11 down. I have 11 teams.
Really?
I'm missing some teams that you might think are a little bit higher than other places. So T.O., since you just said, wow, it means your list is probably going to be short. So I'm going to go to you first on this one.
It's shorter.
Give me your list of the teams that can win a title this year.
All right. Even though they just lost 2 in a row, Baylor is part of my list. Purdue, because they're eventually I just have too much faith in Painter and all those guys. They have one of the fastest human beings on the planet with the ball in his hands. Jaden Ivey and all that size, and Trevion Williams. Some of those passes he makes, guys, just warm my heart, because I would usually be the guy on the opposite wing waiting for a post pass like that. And Trevor Booker could make them, but not like Trevion Williams. So I love that. Auburn can win it. We've already talked about them. Duke, with 5 potential first round draft picks on that roster, talent wins in the NCAA tournament. They'll be able to overwhelm you. AJ Griffin has been awesome. Not kind of good, awesome over the last few games.
Ultimate difference maker for him. He makes shots and he's great.
Yeah.
Ultimate difference maker.
Absolutely. Arizona can win it, which is wild to think about. And then Illinois, because the way they shoot it, Curbelo coming back, hopefully off the bench. I think that's the best way he can be effective. I know a lot of people probably won't agree with me on that, but those 6 right there, I think, can do it.
And for the record, I got a text during the show that said in uniform in regards to Andre Curbelo today. So I don't know if that means he's playing this. We're recording this about an hour before Illinois and Purdue actually tip off on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, but it looks like Andre Curbelo, at the very least, is going to be in uniform. I don't know if that means he's playing, but he's going to be in uniform today. So I know he's been dealing with some serious health stuff. So I'm glad to see him come back. Good for the kid. I want to see these kids have fun and enjoy their time. Is that it? We hit everyone. You had 6, right?
I had 6. Yeah, I got 6.
It was Auburn, Duke, Gonzaga, Baylor, Arizona, and Illinois, and Purdue. You had Purdue in there too.
And Purdue, yep.
So 7.
That's 6. Baylor, Purdue, Auburn, Duke, Arizona, Illinois. Which did you say an extra one?
I don't remember. Gonzaga. You didn't have Gonzaga. No Gonzaga.
No Gonzaga.
Wow. T.O. with the hot take. All right, Fanta, give me your title tier teams.
I have 10, 2 tiers of 5.
Okay.
And to not go too long, for a lot of the reasons that Terrence listed. So let's just give it to you right now. Here's the list. We love lists. These are the 10 teams that I think can win a national championship. Tier 1, 5 teams. Duke, Auburn, Arizona, Baylor, Gonzaga. Those are the 5 teams I feel most confident in. Baylor for their defense, Duke as well for their defensive ability. You talked about A.J. Griffin and the fact that Paolo Banchero can do what he does. Auburn for their tempo, for the player Jabari Smith. And I just love Walker Kessler as a rim protector. Arizona for Benedict Mathurin being one of the best teams in the country, and that rim protection. Those are the 5 in Tier 1. In Tier number 2, Purdue, because you combine the length with Jaden Ivey's stardom, with the shot making that they have, 3 or 4 guys that can all go off from 3. That's why. Kentucky is in Tier number 2. Ty Washington has blossomed into a superstar. He's perfect for the system. Kellen Grady is the most important piece for them because you guys talked about earlier on this show that Kentucky stuck in a half-court game. How are they going to win? They were involved in a rugged game with LSU a couple weeks back. And Wheeler and Washington, as T.O. had somewhere, Wheeler and Washington both exiting that game late. LSU beat them 65-60. But that was a more rugged game, and I thought Kentucky fought well in that game. You still got Oscar Tshiebwe, and you still got an elite shot maker. I don't care where the game's played, what tempo it's played at. Kellen Grady can hit shots. If Ty's continuing to build, watch out. Kansas is in there for me. I still think the Kansas Jayhawks can win a national championship. Ochai Agbaji, on any given day, is the best player in college basketball. So I'm going to side with that. And will David McCormick be able to keep a rhythm going? We'll see. Illinois is in there. Illinois, without Curbelo, has actually found out some things about some of their other guard play. I like Grandison quite a bit on that team. And I think that Kofi Cockburn is going to be able to compete, if not win, any battle he has. I'd love to see Cockburn and Tshiebwe play. But Trent Frazier, to me, is the biggest piece of that Illinois team. They need him. Mm-hmm. He's a veteran player. He makes big-time shots. Frazier's the most important piece. That's the most important piece of the puzzle as to why Illinois could win it. And my 10th team, rounding them out, in the final team in Tier 2, is a team that is currently KenPom number 3, a team that has won 6 straight games. They are hanging right there at the bottom of Tier 2, but they are in my tier of 10 teams that could win it all, and that is Villanova, because they do not turn the ball over. You've got to beat them. They're not going to make mistakes. Colin Gillespie's a game manager, the epitome of it. Villanova rounds out tier number 2.
Villanova amazes me because they just continue to win in spite of not having huge talent. And they just keep doing the right stuff over and over and over. And you alluded to it, Fanta, a couple of shows ago or podcasts ago, or I don't know the vernacular, but like they never make mistakes. They always find ways to beat you. And that aura of we are Villanova is such a thing, especially in Big East play. Yes. Like it's amazing. And I'm wondering like how long I'm going to be able to count them out, because I'm counting them out right now. But good gosh, they just find ways to win consistently.
Yeah, it sucks that me and Fanta actually have literally the exact same list. I have 10 teams down. I have the 5 that I think are the favorites and 5 that I think can win a title. And it's the exact same. It's a little bit of a different order, but I have the exact same teams. The biggest thing for me is I think I'm lower on Purdue at this point than I think a lot of people are, because I have such a hard time trusting their guard play. And the one thing that we know about March and we know about the NCAA tournament is you have to have some kind of like great guard play to be able to win. Like there's a reason why UConn won a title when it was Kemba Walker and a bunch of guys, why they won a title when it was Shabazz Napier and a bunch of guys. If you go back over the years and look at the teams that have won national titles, they all have had not just one great point guard, but most of them had 2 great point guards over the course of the last decade. So it's difficult for me to fully buy into a team like Purdue, where I'm like, I don't even know if they have one great point guard on that roster or one good point guard on that roster, So I need Jaden Ivey to take a step before I fully buy on them. Same thing with Kansas, right? Like I need Remy Martin to be back healthy. I need David McCormick to be the guy that he was on Saturday. I need Jalen Wilson to be the guy that he was on Saturday. But when you have, I think the pieces are all there for Kansas, right? Like if you tell me Remy Martin, Christian Braun, Oshai Agbaji, Jalen Wilson, David McCormick are all playing their best and coached by Bill Self. Like, that team is fucking good, right? Now, I don't know if they're going to get there, but you can't tell me that a team with those 5 guys and that head coach is going to find a way to play some of their best basketball in March. And if they are playing their best basketball in March, like, you have to buy into that, right? Like, I just don't know how you can't. I have one X factor written down, and I'm curious your guys' opinion on this, because I think that they are another team that's kind of being undervalued by college basketball fandom at large, and that's Wisconsin. I think outside of like maybe 3 teams, Wisconsin is going to have the best player on the floor every time that they play. We've seen them have full blow-up games. Tyler Wall has taken a step forward. Brad Davison. I mean, look, I hate on the kid as much as anyone, but like, it's all for like the stuff he does on the court. It's not for what he can actually do when he's playing. And I mean, he's hitting big shots. He's coming off of screens. He's tough. There's a leadership aspect there. I think he's such an undervalued piece for what that Wisconsin team is.
He's a really good player.
He's a really good. He shoots the hell out of it. They run him off of screens. He opens stuff up. He's tough. You're good. You know, you're going to get at least 3 to 4 turnovers because of all the flopping stuff that he does. Like, he's a very, very valuable player that helps you win basketball games. I don't like the flopping shit that he does. I think that he's like, he pulls some, I don't know if I want to call him dirty, but like, there's too many times that he's hit another dude in the nuts for me to not say that at some point it's got to be kind of intentional, right? At some point you kind of have to say that, but he helps them win, man. Like, you can't ignore the wins that he provides and what he provides there. Again, I don't know if I trust their point guard play, but I also think that when it comes down to it, Johnny Davis is actually their point guard. So Wisconsin to me is a team, like, you always want to find those teams that have the one dude that can carry you on a run through March. And like, if there's one guy that I trust to be able to do that, it's Johnny Davis. So to me, I rarely have a list of teams that can win it that's this deep. I don't think that there's one team that can't be beaten in college. Everyone's got a flaw. Everyone's got something wrong with them, right? So it's like the first season of America's Next Top Model, right? Everyone's got a flaw before they started.
I just think there's a lot of really, really good teams this year as a result of kids coming back, and they're just, a boatload of experience. Yes. Like, I also think flaws get exposed when the sport is better. Like, if that makes sense, right? Like, you're going to be able to see more crazy things happen if you've got better teams near the top or at the top of the country. So it's fun. It's fun to be able to debate that there could be 5 or 6 different teams that are in that top tier of being able to win it all, that we could see multiple other number ones. Like, that's when college basketball is better, I would argue. So I think not only is it because of the COVID stuff that kids came back, but I also think that this is a sign of what we're going to see in the future. Because now, if you're a coach who loses a big senior class or who loses a foundational piece, you can go through the portal, go to aisle 12, and you can find somebody who's looking for a redemption tour and who might just be the player that you need to stay in that category if you build a roster correctly. So the portal changes everything in this sport. There's going to be more national championship contenders year after year because of the transfer portal. I really feel that way.
Yeah, and it's not just the fact that the portal exists. It's the fact that you didn't have red shirts because of transfers this season, right? Like, normally all of these kids would have been sitting out for a year, and you have like 30 players that would have been contributing pieces on really good teams that you needed that weren't playing, and now they're actually able to play. So I think that helps the sport as well. And again, we talk about the NIL stuff all the time. I think you're going to be getting more of these really super talented one and done kids getting into college. You're going to be getting kids that are kind of in that, should I go to Europe? Should I go try to get a 2-way, or should I come back and make like $50K off my NIL stuff? I think you're getting more of those kids coming back to school as well. So the everyone wants to complain about like the player empowerment in college basketball. It's the best thing for the sport. And it's going to be a pain in the ass for coaches, right? Like, this idea of having to recruit through agents as opposed to recruiting through families and AAU coaches. Like, I get it, whatever. That's why these elite college basketball coaches get paid what they pay, right? There's a reason why you get as much money as you get. There's a reason why those paychecks are as nice as they are. And look, there's a lot of coaches that listen to this. I know what your paychecks are like when you're coaching at the highest level. So it is what it is, man. Just adapt with the times. You got to do what you got to do. It's a great
Look
thing
at
for the
Fulkerson. Look at Fulkerson. Like Fulkerson, I have a roundabout idea of what he's making through some of his NIL stuff. And it's more than a first-year contract in Europe. And that's where he would have ended up. So, like,
well, for the record, like Fulkerson might have to get some fines to those NIL deals if he keeps putting up 0 points, 0 rebounds, and 3 turnovers. Hey, Fulker, man, you got to get it together.
He's been sick, man. He's been really sick.
Hey, Baker Mayfield threw another interception just now, and he's on every progressive ad known to man. So performance compared to commercial. I have a question for T.O.
Yeah.
I have a John from New Jersey asking a question to Terrence.
First time, long time, T.O.
Right. First time, long time. My question is, as a former player, the ebbs and flows of basketball, how the game evolved, how it's evolved here. You're probably fascinated to see how the game's evolved even in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Beyond the 3-point arc. How much of this also might be that today's 18 to 21-year-old has adapted where the sport was going maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but that kid at the youth level didn't have the same road as the kid now playing college basketball has to better adapt and not make the college game look ugly, if that question makes sense.
So what you're asking me is, why is talent better now compared to, is that kind of what you're asking me? Like, why is talent able to adapt now? Because we're getting bigger kids that are more skilled?
That, and I just think 5 or 6 years ago, I talked to some people sometimes and they'd say, God, the college product can be dreadful at times. Yep. And I don't think in 21, 22, you could say that it's dreadful. I think the product of games is good.
It's really good. It's really good. I actually had this exact conversation with the guy named Nick Rajicic, who's kind of like the Skip Bayless of Sweden for college basketball. And he's like, hey, man, it's amazing. Basketball is exploding in Sweden. And Sweden's not typically a huge basketball country. But because of Instagram and Snapchat and the accessibility it is for all these kids, like I was sitting there thinking about, I had to do the workouts that my dad taught me because we didn't know any better. I had to do the workouts that my coaches told me to do because I didn't know any better. Now these kids are seeing all these workouts and all these different things that people are working on. So like you're getting a bigger, you're exposed to so much more information and how you can get better. And what happens is there's a lot of people playing basketball. These 6'6" kids that were 6'6" in middle school, they were told to get down on the block. Now they're watching all these people on YouTube going through all these drills. They're like, why can't I do that? That looks a lot more fun anyway. And so you're getting a better product as a result. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I really do. Like the exposure that you can get and things you can work out on, it's tremendously different. Like how many kids, even 10 years ago, when I was playing in Sweden, when it was starting to grow, basketball was starting to grow more and more and more. Like, was it a huge point of emphasis, all these things? No. But kids, like, because of Snapchat, because of Instagram, like they see all these snippets. So now they're even more interested, and it just keeps going and going and going. And now a kid, after he's piqued his interest, he gets to find out, well, what do they do? And then you can kind of carry on from that. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Well, listen, guys, we've been here for an hour. This has been fun. This has been the DTF podcast for Terrence Oglesby. For John Fanta, my name is Rob Doster. We'll see you guys again next Monday.